Okay. So hello guys, welcome back to the Java basic sessions. So I think we should start now. So guys, the topic for today's session is file handling in Java. Okay, so we are basically trying to see how Java handles file handling, and if you want to, let's say, read a specific file in Java. So let's say if you want to read a CSV file, you want to read an Excel file with any format, okay? If you want to read a TXT file, so how do we do that in Java? Okay. And a reading file is an important concept, and we are covering this in basic Java. And the reason behind that is going forward for Selenium, we'll be needing these concepts, right? Wherein for Selenium, for providing test data, okay? So if there are a lot of users wherein we have to, for example, let's say login. If you want to check login for a couple of users, then it's fine. You can define it in your properties file in the Selenium, right? But yeah, if you have, say, let's say if you want to test for 50 users, there are 15 different roles and permissions you have in your system, and then you have to check it for more than 50 and 100 users. Then you'll have to read the data from a flat file or a CSV file. You can say a CSV file is a flat file. So you'll have to read data somewhere from the file, right? It can be a CSV file, it can be an XLS file, Excel file, text, TXT file, any file. But somewhere or the other, you'll have to read data from a file, okay? And also, so basically, we'll cover how we can read data from a CSV file. So we are really assuming that we have some data, okay? We have some data which is present in a CSV file, and now we want to read that particular data, okay? And the later part, that is which will actually in Selenium, wherein we have to use that particular data and we have to pass it on a specific field and all, those are actually part of Selenium. But in Java, we can see how we can access data from a particular file. Okay, so now let's quickly create one new class. Okay, so I'll create one new class. I'll say, so it's I want to read data from file. Let's say I want to read data from a file. Okay, so let's say this is package missing. What's the package? Okay. Let's not create over here, and let's have everything in one place. Okay, so it's easier for us. Later on, I can push this code into Git and everyone can have access. So we'll create in our Java practice, the default one which we had. So I'll say read data from file. I'll say read data from file. Okay. Now, first thing is you can have a main method, okay, and then I'll create a method to read data from a file. So basically Java input. So this all comes into Java input. Input output is used to process the input and produce the output. Okay. And here comes the picture of file handling by Java input output API. So basically, how do we start with file handling? So let's assume you have a file. First thing is you need to have a file. Okay. So I'll create one file. Let's say I already have one file. Okay. Let me share you. Okay, I'll say 1 second. I'll say okay. So can you see this file, guys? Okay. So let's just assume I have one test underscore auto something name, and it's a CSV file. It's a flat file. Okay. It's a flat file, and I want to read this particular file. My aim is to read this particular file. So let's assume we have username and password. Okay, within this you can have some meaningful names and password, guys. This is just for dummy names and not even dummy, just a simple. So username and password. Okay, so you'll have some real names over here, and this is your file. This is your file. Okay, guys. Now what I'll do is you can read this file from anywhere into your system, but the best practice is you should have this your file. You should have your file in your Eclipse workspace. Okay, best practice is you should have your file in your Eclipse workspace. Okay, so this is my file. Okay, you can see this, right? This is my file. this is my file. Okay. Now let's say I'll start with reading. So first I'll specify the first thing to read a file is you have to specify the path. Okay. The system should know that where exactly your file is placed. So first let me create one method. Okay. This method is simple read data. Simple method read data. Okay. Now first thing is you will have to specify where your file is. So what I need is I need one file path variable. Okay, I'll need one file path variable first of all. What's the second thing? Okay, let's go with file path first. So now what I'll say, my file path will contain the path to my file. So I'll say, let's say file path. Okay, oh, file path is equal to something. File path is equal to something. This is saying, okay, static error. Okay, so again, since we are into static method, right? We all know this, right? Okay, we have the static method, so this file path should be static. Okay, so file path, what will this contain? This will contain the path. So just right click on your file. Okay, just right click on your file, go to properties. I think most of the people might be aware of all these things, but I'm just showing you for a revision point, you can see. Simple. Okay, what we will do? We will just right click on your file and we will say properties, and this is the path. So I'll say this is my file path. Okay, guys, I'll say this is my file path. Please go and pick up file from this file path. Okay, now this is clear. Okay, we have this particular file path. Now, what is the next step? Next step is file reader. So basically, now you have to read that particular file. Okay, we don't need this. This was some wrong import. You have to read your particular file. So we can read using file reader. So let me create a reference, an object. Let's say file reader. Okay, these are all in java.io. Okay, java.inputOutput package, guys. Okay, can you see this package? It's java.io. Okay, I'll say file reader. Simple. For reading, we need a file reader. Okay, now over here I can define file reader. I'll initialize file reader. Okay, so I'll say file reader is equals to new file reader. Okay, it's equals to new file reader, and see it is expecting a file. It is expecting a file. Now where is my file? Where is my file located? At file path. My file is located at file path. Okay, this is clear, guys. Okay, let me see it. I think, yeah, okay. So I'll let this error be like this. First, let's understand the concept. File path declares, or it is a reference, or you can say it is the address of your file. This is the address of your file. So my file is placed at this location, and that information I have in file path. Now I want to say file reader. I want to read that particular file. Okay, so I'll say new file reader and read from this path. Okay, read from this path. So guys, now there are this one thing. When you actually try to read, let's say you want to try to read from a specific path. So you can read from that path, obviously. But what if there is no file? Okay, I have given this path. Okay, guys, and there are chances that there is no file over there. Then this will fail, right? This will fail. So Java is giving you a warning at the very first instance itself that there are chances of failure. Okay, and if there are chances of failure, you have to handle it. So there is an exception, right? So you can either surround with try catch. The best way is you can surround with try catch, or you can say add throws declaration. Okay, so you can try this. You can say try, and then you can catch. So why do we need this exception handling? For the scenario wherein there is a break for the execution flow, for the normal flow. So now we can read that particular file. We have it in file reader. Okay. Now, what file reader does? What is the role of file reader? So file reader will read your data. File reader will read your data from the file. Okay, but it will read character by character. It will read character by character from your file. Now, on top of that, you can say On top of that, we have a wrapper as BufferedReader. Okay, BufferedReader. Now, what is the capability of BufferedReader? BufferedReader do not read data directly from a file. It reads data from a reader itself. Okay, it reads data from a reader. So I would say we have this file reader. Okay, so I'll say file reader. Okay, reads data directly from the file. Okay, reads data directly from the file. But okay, so now I need one buffered reader. Okay, so I'll say static buffered reader. Okay, so buffered reader is a class, and I'll create one object for that. Okay, so I'll say buffered reader. See guys, I'm following the naming convention as well. Okay, so I'll say buffered reader. Now, what does this particular buffered reader do? So I'll create reader. Sorry, this is buffered reader, right? So I'll create buffer reader is equal to new. Sorry, is equal to new, and it says buffer reader, and it is expecting a reader. It is expecting a reader. 1 second, guys. Someone has given some chat. Let me leave. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'll cover that. Okay, so now we have this buffered reader, and what this buffer reader is expecting a file reader. So I'll say file reader. Okay, this is clear now. So we had file reader, and then we are using now buffer reader. So now what is the role of buffer reader? So buffer reader reads data from a reader. First point. Okay guys, first point is buffer reader reads data from a reader. Okay, not from the file. It is reading data from a reader. And which is the reader over here? This is my reader. Okay, file reader is my reader. Okay, so now we'll first see a simple flow. Okay, now there's one more thing, guys. Okay, so I'll explain you the differences later on. So what we can do is, let's say I'll define one string. I'll go by line. Okay, so I'll have string line, simple. Now we have to read. Okay, we have to read your particular file. Okay, we have to read your particular file. So what I'll say is, let's say while, I'll simply use one while loop. Okay, and we have to keep on reading. We have to keep on reading till our object is buffer reader dot, you can say, read line. Okay, so what is the role of read line? Let's see over here. Reads a line of text. Okay, when I say read line, it reads the line of text, and a line is considered to be terminated by any one of the line thread. Okay, and there might be a possibility for an input-output error occurs if there is no specific file to read. So when I click this, it will read a specific line. Okay, it will read a specific line. But now we'll have to store that particular line somewhere. Okay, and we have to also make sure. Okay, first let me store that. So where I can store it in line is equal to this. Okay, line is equal to this. Okay, and along with this, I'll say this is, I'm trying to read. Okay, this should not be equals to null. Okay, if I'm reading, then there has to be some condition, right? I'll read till, okay, this will give you some exception, I guess. Okay, and throws declaration. So this will throw a declaration, input output exception, as I said. Okay, so this will keep on reading, but so okay, so when I say buffer reader dot read line, okay, so it will read the first line. So let's just assume, okay, over here, if I say, okay, this is my line 1, and this is my line 2, and this is my line 3. Okay, so when I say buffer reader dot read line, okay, so it will read the first line. Okay, it will read the first line, and then that particular line means this line will be over here. Line, okay, will be over here, and then you can use this to print. Simple, but there has to be some limitation of reading, right? Till when are you planning to read? So when you keep on read lines, okay, so the line 2, again when you keep on reading line 3, but when there is no line, that means something is equal to null, right? When this is equal to null, then somewhere we have to stop. That is why we have not equal to null. Okay, now what I can do is, I'll simply, we have that particular line. Let me try to print that line. Let's see what happens. Okay, if I try to print that particular line, let's see. Okay, first thing is I'll have to call this. So my method name is read data. The method name is read data. Again, it might be some input output error. So exception handling is okay. So now we have, okay, let me move this down. Okay, so now my file had this particular details, username, password, and then these are the details. So now I can see I have all the data from my file. It has been printed on the screen. All the data from my file has been printed on the screen. But can you see there is one issue? And what's the issue? Let's assume you are now automating your Selenium code. Okay, you're now automating your Selenium code. Okay, so for the username field, which is the value which you're trying to put, which exactly is the value username one. Okay, this is the header of your Excel file, guys. This is the header of your Excel file. So how do you have an Excel file or a CSV file? Your first line, let's assume your first line is a header. Okay, so you will say name, and below name you will have, on the first line you will have Ajay. So Ajay is the value which you have to paste it on your Selenium code, right? I mean, you have to paste it on that particular field. Okay, not username. Okay, so this output, okay, this output is correct because we have tried to read the file and now we have this data. This is correct, but we want the data from first line, which is my actual data, not the headers. So what I'll do is I'll simply do what? I'll move a line front. Okay, I'll say line is equals to, I'll say buffer reader dot read line. Simple. Okay, so this has now already read one line. Okay, so the headers, you can say this line you can use to avoid headers. Okay, so we have read for the first line. Okay, now when I move into the while loop, it will start reading from the next line. So let's say when I print this, okay, so now this particular line was the header. This is the header. This contains the header. Okay, but I'm not printing that. Now I'm directly into while loop and I'm starting reading again from the next line. So now I'm getting the actual value. This is the exact value which we needed. Okay, this is the exact value which we needed. Okay, now why do we need buffer reader and file reader? Okay, so first of all is file reader reads data from the file in a character way. Okay, but buffer reader reads data directly from the file reader. First thing. So assuming this, buffer reader is fast. Okay, because it is reading data from file reader first of all. And second thing is, guys, let's see if you are reading data from file reader. Okay, and if you don't use buffer reader and if you use directly file reader, then each and every time for each and every data, it will go to the file and read the data from the file. Okay, but buffer reader has some concept of buffering. Okay, when you read a data, it will keep in your buffer. Okay, it will have your data in your buffer and it will buffer the particular. So let's example, when you are watching YouTube videos or any other videos, right? So when you go to YouTube video, even without playing, the video started getting buffered, right? So it's already buffered, so that when you actually start playing the video, okay, the data is already buffered. So it's like a seamless interface, you can say seamless interface, so that there is no issue. So whenever you use buffer reader, okay, it is much faster as compared to file reader. Okay, guys. So I can say buffer reader is a wrapper around another reader because buffer reader is expecting reader. How the first header? Okay. Oh yeah. I'll explain. Okay. And what are things? Okay. So basically, there is one more thing. We can also use scanner, right? Instead of using file reader, we can use scanner. But scanner again is slow. And scanner, the main purpose of scanner is it can read from a variety of sources. So when I have given you some Java program, so what we used to do, we used to say system.out.println, enter a number, right? And then we used to take that number using scanner. So scanner is basically used for interactive input. But when we are dealing with file input and all those things, so the basic thing which we use is file reader, and top of that file reader we use buffer reader. Okay, and guys, apart from buffer reader, also there are many other like we have OpenCSV, right? OpenCSV is also it's an additional tool which you can use to read a CSV file. So what you have to do is you just have to the way we have used buffer reader, there is a CSV reader. Okay, so you'll have to have some dependencies. You need to add some jar file for this, and you can simply use CSV reader. Okay. now we have read this data. So someone is saying, how can you please explain how the first header is removed? Okay. So guys, let's ignore this line. Let's ignore this particular line and let's print. Okay. This particular line, the first line is your header. Okay. So for each and every file, okay, let me, one second guys, I'll show you. Okay. So when I say, okay, so anyways guys, I think it's so let me explain here only. So when I have a particular CSV or any other text file, if you have, right, so basically the first line, your first line is the header line. Okay, it can depend, you can have more than that and you can have some info as well, but let's say your first line is your header line. So what will be the header? Username, and let's say this is password, and below this you will have the actual data. So your username will be, let's say, ajay.mishra@gmail.com. Okay, and password will be something like solutions and password. Okay, then username 2 will be, let's say, wiki@gmail.com. So this is the actual data starting from here, which we have to pass. Okay, but in this output we are getting this line as well. So when you incorporate this particular code in your Selenium code, let's assume, okay, so what will Selenium do? It will take this also as an input, it will pass this as the input to your username and password field, which is actually wrong, right? This is not your input. So we have to avoid this line. So I'll simply say line is equal to BufferedReader.readLine. So I am reading the first line. Okay, I am reading the first line over here. So I have read the first line, that is the header. Now I have read the first line. So first line is over. Okay, now these lines are pending. So now I'll use the looping concept. So I'll say now BufferedReader.readLine. So now it will read this line, it has already read, right? So it will move to the next line. So now it will start reading from here. And all my activities will be performed into this while loop. Okay, into this while loop, I'll perform all my activities. Okay, now, yeah, we'll go there also, Arun. So now let's say you have some Selenium code. Okay, Selenium code is, we use .send keys, right? I'm not explaining Selenium, guys, just giving you a heads up. I'm using .send keys. So using this send keys, now you can use the value of line, or you can use the value of this individual email or password. Now, there's one more thing missing over here. This particular line is giving you this entire data. Okay, this entire data. Okay, this particular line is giving you this entire data. But when you are actually trying to input some of the values in, let's say, username, okay, username. So on website or any other application, you do not have a username comma password field, right? You'll have first username field, you'll have to enter username. So out of this particular data, you will have to get value of username 1. Now we need value username 1. Okay, then you can pass this value in your send keys, and then again I'll use password 1. Okay, then I can pass this value. So this will be my test case 1. Okay, now how do we select username 1? Now this is your next task. My first, so we have to divide the problem, as I said, into smaller units. So my first problem was reading the file. Now I have read the file. Then my second problem was to read an individual line. Okay, so now I have printed individual line. My next problem was to avoid the headers. Okay, so now I have also avoided my headers. Okay, so I'm good as of now. Now my next target is to read individual values for each cell. I would say this is each cell. Okay, so now over here I have all my data. Where do I, in which particular, all my data? Line. I have all my data in line. Okay, so what I can do is I can simply say line.split. Line.split. I want to split my data, and your splitting should happen on the basis of comma. This is your regular expression. You can pass any regular expression over here. If the file is, let's say if you're using colon, you can pass colon. If it is comma, you can pass comma. So this is my line. Okay, my line, let me select this, line is equal to this. So this is the value which my line holds as of now, and I want only username. So I'll split this line with the help of comma. Okay, so now when I split this, I'm getting username 1 and password 1. Okay, now what's the next step? So guys, the reading, when you are practicing something and when you have something new which you are not aware of. Let's say, I don't know, now I knew line dot split. Now I don't know what to do next. I don't know what to do next. So I'll simply try to hover on this line dot split and I'll say what this particular split function is doing. Split is a method. Okay. Split is a method. It is available in string. Okay. Oh, 1 second. Let me hover again. Okay. String is a method. Sorry, split is a method available in string. It is returning you a string array. It is returning you a string array. So I didn't knew, right? See, it's saying, can you see this over here? When you pass the regular expression like this and the result is boo and foo, okay? Let's say this was my input, right? Say it's giving you an example also. This is my input, boo, colon and colon foo, okay? And now when I'm using a regular expression as this colon, it's giving you 3 particular values in a string array. And when I use input as O, it's giving you B, okay? And then this colon and then F. It is using O as your regular expression, okay? So using this, you can say, okay, when I say split, it is returning me a array of string. So what I'll do, I'll simply say string array, okay? Then I'll create one variable. So let's say words. These are my actual words, or any values or any specific name you can give depending on your project. Okay. So now we have words. Okay. Now what you can do. Now, how many values do these words have? This is an array, right? You cannot say directly print words. Okay. You should not directly print words because string, this is an array. Again, how do you print an array, guys? We all know this, right? How do you print an array? Okay, yeah. So someone is saying, Nawaz is saying words.0, but Nawaz, again, as I said in my last session, never ever give direct indexes. Okay, so words of 0. Okay, I think this is O0. Never ever give direct indexes. This is not the best practice. Because why is this not a best practice? Because you don't know how many words this particular string array has. Okay, this array, let's say if this array has 2 words and I know that, so I'll do like this. Okay, but if it has 3 words, then, and let's assume it has 10 words, then it would be difficult, right? So there are a lot of ways to print this particular. So I'll simply say a basic for loop. Yeah, we have seen, there are many ways, right? And we have seen those. So I'll use simple words. We have, this is my array, words.length. So keep on looping till we have, and I'll print. Now, what should I print? Now I can print, it's words, right? I'll print words, and I'll say, I am not giving hard-coded 0 or 1, okay? 0 or 1 would be hard coding. I'll say, now let me print this. Okay, now when I'm printing this, okay, so I'm actually printing this also. So it's getting a lot of things. Let me print this. See. Okay, so we have username 1, we have password 1, we have username 2, we have password 2, and so on. So now using this, okay, so first time it's printing username 1, okay, then it's printing password 1. So now using this, you can use individual element, or I can say individual values. For example, let's say first it is giving username 1, use this value into your Selenium code and pass this as an input variable. Okay, then pass password and then click on submit and then see what's happening. Okay. Okay, 1 second, guys. Hello, yeah, I'm back. Yeah, so simple. We have this in, we have the line, and then we have used split method, and then we have splitted the line into different words. So all the words which are present in this line would be available over here. Okay, guys, I think we are good. So again, as I said, FileReader is slow, BufferedReader is fast, because we have buffering concept in BufferedReader, and BufferedReader directly reads from a FileReader, and FileReader reads from actual file. So just a recap, very quick recap, we'll say, first thing, you have to have a file path. Okay, first thing is you have to declare your file path. What is file path? File path is nothing but a string which is holding the path to your file. Where exactly your file is located, that is defined as file path. This particular variable can be anything. This can be file, this can be path, this can be X or ABC. Okay, depending on you, but you should give some meaningful name so that even people who have joined in next or people who are reading your code should be able to understand it quickly. Okay, next is file reader. Okay, next is file reader. Now, a file reader is equals to new file reader, and using file reader will actually read the file, and file reader will expect a file path. It is expecting a file path, so I'll pass my file path over here. File path again is a path to your file. Now I'm wrapping it with the help of BufferedReader. Okay, so I'll say BufferedReader is equal to new BufferedReader. Okay, and then simply I'll pass file reader, because BufferedReader is expecting a reader, and which is my reader over here, file reader. Clear? Then we have this just string line. This is one variable. Why are we using this? Line is equal to BufferedReader.read line. Okay, so guys, let's assume if someone is giving you a CSV or an Excel file which contains the data directly from line 1, okay, directly from line 1, and if there are no headers, okay, I think it would not be possible, but let's just assume that you have to avoid this line. You have to avoid this line, and if there are headers, you have to use this line. You can skip your headers using this line. Okay. Next, if I remove, let's forget this split. So simple, your line will contain all the data from one line. So each line will be, this buffer reader will be reading each line, and then it will be storing it in line. You can print this particular line. Else, let's say if you want to get data of individual cells, you can use line.split. Line.split will split all the data in this particular line with the help of a regular expression, which you can specify over here. So in this case, I'm using comma. Okay, so it will split the data using regular expression comma, and that particular, it will return you an array of string. It will return you an array of string. If you don't know what a particular method is returning, just try to hover on that particular method, and it will specify what am I returning. Okay, and keep that particular, save that particular value in a distinct words, and then you can use a simple for loop, very basic for loop, and traverse through these particular words and print all the elements. Now someone says, what if value of non-mandatory field empty, like middle name? What if value of non-mandatory field empty? Like, so if there are no values, there would be no value in words as well, right? So you won't get any values over here. Okay, so if you don't get any values, and when you try to print it on using Selenium code, so let's assume on the Selenium code, if you're on the website, if middle what's the middle name, if middle name field is mandatory, and here if you're getting it as null, then your Selenium code should throw an error. Okay, so this way we can use